Hey guys, Stefan Fischer here from All Off Road. I'm today here with Carl, a good buddy of mine, who had this Jeep built a few years ago. And we were always meaning to do a walkthrough of that car, but somehow never got around to it.
Yeah, we lost track of time.
And Carl got a bit busy with work, so he didn't really have much chance driving it over the past few years, I guess.
Yeah, 2 years or so has been, I just haven't had the opportunity to get out as much as I'd like. So.
Yeah. And that is also the reason why he said he now parts with the car, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm looking at moving the car on. Basically, I'm not doing the tracks that I used to do in it. I want to do a bit more longer term stuff with a bit of touring, with a bit of towing as well. And I'm just not doing the tracks that this vehicle deserves to do.
Good opportunity now to do the walk around, and maybe someone is interested in the vehicle and obviously they can contact you directly. It is overall a very well-built car, but it has one particular thing I really like and I will have in my Hilux build. But I'll let Carl explain and run you through the build of this Jeep now.
Thanks, yeah, so it is engineered on 35s with a 3.5-inch lift, Fox adjustable shocks, Murchison springs, all that sort of stuff. But the thing that you're talking about, and one of the things that I'm proudest of with this car, is an Atlas 4-speed transfer case. So it's got a 1-to-1 ratio, 2-to-1 ratio, a 2.7-to-1 ratio, and that multiplies to make a 5.44-to-1 ratio. So this is the Atlas transfer case controls that you can see. We've got, in addition to the manual gearing that you can see, I've got 3 other gear levers. We've got front and rear independent controls here. Moving forward, it puts us in high range, which is the day-to-day drive that we're doing now, just a rear-wheel drive. I can move them both back, which puts us in low range, which is a 2-to-1 gear ratio. That 2-to-1 gear ratio is really nice when you're on those in-between tracks or on sand. If we do get to the tricky parts where we need that really fine control, I can then move this back and it multiplies the 2-to-1 by another 2.7-to-1 to give us the 5.44-to-1 crawl ratio. That gives so much control when off-road, it just makes it so easy. When we combine that with the iDrive to desensitize the throttle a little bit, as you can also see, I've got a floor plate for the right foot so that you can just roll on that control when you're doing those interesting tracks.
I mean, Atlas transfer case is pretty much the gold standard in crawler cases. You see that in comp trucks, you see that in a lot of high-end builds. And the 4-speed Atlas, the options you have in regards to gearing is pretty much unmatched. And on top of that, it's very hard to break an Atlas transfer case, especially with 35-inch tires.
So to support the Atlas transfer case, we've got custom drive shafts, both front and rear, and the rear is certainly probably twice as strong as what it needs to be, and the front is certainly stronger as well. Now we've got 456 diff ratios, which supports the 35s really nicely. The whole front axle and housing is G2 with 35 spline. And the rear is a chromoly G2 axles. You're dual locked, you've got a front air locker, a rear e-locker, and so it's built tough to be able to do the tracks without braking.
And you need the front G2 to get it engineered on 35s, huh?
That's right, you need the front redone. The rear, I didn't need redone for the engineering, however, I strengthened it with the chromoly axles anyway because why not be stronger than you need to be?
Because it has a Dana 44 in the rear.
That's right.
And with stronger axles and so on, that should last you quite a while.
So I've put on Murchison springs, which provide that progressive spring ratio on the smaller tracks, on the lighter tracks, stones, it absorbs them very nicely, and it's still got the strength to need it when you go around the sharper corners or whatever, so it drives quite well. I've got, as you can see, the Method race wheels, and I've gone with the Yokohama XAT tyres. I used to run mud terrains, but the only advantage that mud terrains had over this was in mud. And I found these to be fairly equivalent on all other tracks and all other surfaces. And of course the benefit is when you're driving it on the road, it's just so much nicer.
So Carl, you set up more as a multi-purpose vehicle really, huh? So it would still do kind of some light touring, it's still a good run around, but it will also do pretty much every track you throw at it.
Absolutely, and probably the only thing you wouldn't do with this in terms of touring is the extended stays in the outback.
Yeah.
So, but as you can see, it's got the unique front and rear bar. We've got the sliders. I've got a 4mm bash plate all the way underneath. We've got disconnects for that articulation that we need.
Front sway bar disconnect.
That's right, yep. And they're quick disconnects. Obviously got a winch, we've got the steady light bars. Now I was very conscious about the weight of this vehicle and I didn't want to add extra weight that I didn't need. So even on the rear, I've just put in the heavy duty hinges as opposed to the full rear bar, which adds an extra 50 or so kilos that we just don't need. Even the roof racks that I've put on, I kept lightweight because I don't want to put super heavy stuff on the roof. I want to keep it fairly light so that all the weight is down the bottom.
And with the Jeep, that is quite important because they don't really have that much extra weight you can carry. If you don't consider weight when you build a Jeep, it is super easy to get over GVM.
Now it does have a Gvm upgrade. The Gvm upgrade gives it an equivalent carry weight of what a stock standard Jeep would do without any modifications. So you still don't want to overload the car, but it is capable of carrying the weight that is needed.
So with all your extra weight, you still pretty much have the same carrying capacity on top of that than you would have with a stock car.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
Good.
So we've obviously got the Snorkel, which is an AEV, genuine AEV brand Snorkel.
Yeah.
I've lifted up the diff breathers, so they're right up here inside the engine so that we can...
Is it a Snorkel or a raised air intake? Is it fully sealed?
It's fully sealed.
Okay,
yeah.
good, yeah.
So I've gone with the flat flares, the Bushwhacker flares, which have a level of flexibility within them. They're riveted in, and so they have some flexibility. Now, importantly with the engineering as well, you've got to make sure that they're wide enough to cover the stance of the car. And I've moved out the front bull bar slightly, and I've put a rubber end on that because if you are going through the tighter tracks and you hit something, a rubber's very easy to flex, bend, that sort of stuff without damaging something and having to redo it. The mud flaps I've made all removable. They're part of the engineering as well, and it's simple clip, undo it, take it off in 10 seconds. The rear mud flaps, just R-clips will pull it out and you can store them while you're doing the serious trails and put them on for the drive home. So when we move to the rear of the car, there's heavy duty hinges which help to hold this open and keep it upright when off-road. We've got a unique fold down table which just folds down to 90 degrees, a bit more comfortable when we're set up around camp. In the back floor, I've built a false floor which has multiple purposes. First of all, we've got a spot for the fridge which you can choose to use or not use. I use a 40-litre fridge which fits perfectly. Over here, I've got custom built ORS drawers. These drawers literally wedge in, so there's no tie downs, there's nothing like that, and they're secure. The best thing about it is it lifts out without any effort. Once we've lifted out, we've got a clear space which we can fill up with whatever we want. We can fold down the rear, use the vehicle as a normal four-wheel drive effectively or as a normal wagon to store stuff in, throw a tarp down, put wood down, that sort of thing. The best thing it does is it reveals this little hatch for the second battery. Here we've got a BC-DC 1240 attached to a lead crystal battery which has a better ability to discharge and recharge. From the second battery, we go to this power box. This power box is controlled by a fuse block inside the box, and we've got dual Andersons, switches, and your dual USB and accessory plug. The lights themselves control lights on the outside glass, lights inside for at night, so when we need to see. So the third switch over here is attached to the awning, and I've wired up within the awning a light, which is a white and an amber light, which we can control when we're off-road. So anyone that knows Jeeps knows that the rear tub or drop-down box is only very thin. I pulled that out and put a larger unique drop-down box in, which enabled me to put that second battery in. Now what that meant is I had to move the muffler combined with the Long Ranger fuel tank. I've now got a custom exhaust which comes out with a dual hot dog muffler. Now that is really nice when you're accelerating, you hear it, but when you're at cruising speeds, it doesn't have that whiny drone. It just sits nice and relatively quiet as you're driving along. We've got unique rear bar back here. We've obviously got the toe plug, Anderson plug, and a Heyman Reese recessed rear bar. This rear bar being recessed enables us to have just ever so slightly more departure angle when we're off-road. So the most basic thing when we get into the vehicle with a 3.5-inch lift is that we need to hold on to something. So I've added extra grab rails all around, and they make it possible to get in and, well, seat yourself comfortably in the car. I do have an extra head unit, a Sony head unit, which just improves the stereo a little bit. It has a rear camera as well, which enables us to obviously have some sort of vision behind us when we're reversing. I've got a GME UHF and a battery indicator which includes the second battery as well. Over the right hand side on the A pillar, I've got the controls for the locker, the compressor, then I've got the other front and rear lockers over there. The iDrive is here, and I've also got a second tank, so in a long range of fuel tank, which the control is right down here next to the iDrive, and that just gives us an extra 68 litres of fuel when we are off-road, because the Jeeps can be a little thirsty at times. So the last thing that we have is the Redarc Towpro Elite, and that gives us the control for both the adaptive braking as well as the fine braking control when you're off-road. As you can see, it's a 6-speed manual and it's attached to the 3.6 litre Pentastar engine. It's done about 95,000 kilometres. It was built by Nick Finch from Solve Off-Road in his original Seven Hills workshop, and he did all the work on it himself. I built the vehicle because I wanted a dual purpose or crossover vehicle. I wanted to be able to do some interesting tracks one day and then camp up at night for 2, 3, 4, 5 nights, whatever it is, and enjoy some creature comforts, including the fridge, the other power options that are available. It's been a good vehicle, and I hope somebody else can enjoy it.
If you know my builds, you probably realize a few things are missing if I had built it. However, this is a solid build and the price does reflect it. The Atlas 4-speed is brilliant, hence it will also go in my Hilux. Carl does look after his stuff very well, and in comparison to my 4-wheel drives, these Jeep had bugger all hard use. So if you are in the market for a manual petrol Jeep JK, I think this is a very well-rounded, solid build.